All right, BlizzCon '09 continues. I am joined by Leonard Boyarsky and Kevin Martins, and you sirs, I think I've got this straight, you sir are the, oh god, I had it, world design, lead world designer, and lead content designer, is that correct? All right, it's kind of a long day. So you guys are on Diablo 3, and you guys rolled out the monk at this BlizzCon. That's kind of your big reveal for the show. Why was the monk the right guy to push out there right now? I know you've got one more class that you're holding back for now. What was it about the monk that made you want to kind of reveal him to the world?
That's a really good question. It was the guy we wanted to put in the game, and he was the guy who was ready, so it wasn't really a calculated move or anything that, we're just like, oh, what do we want to, what character class do we want to put in the game next? So
yeah, he's got a cool background. He's got interesting fighting style. He's a melee character who isn't nearly as tough as the barbarian, but much faster, so it's very different. He fits a nice slot in I think, in the mix of characters we have so far and the ones to come.
So you guys, the classes that you've shown so far, they're, for the most part, they're different from Diablo 2, but excuse me. But would you say that they fill kind of classic archetypes from the style of game? You've got your kind of tank classes, healers, DPS. Are these new classes fitting into those kind of traditional slots?
To a certain degree, I think any kind of game you want to get your traditional archetypes in there, especially an action-oriented game like this. I hope we're tweaking up some people's expectations, but I think our goal is to create archetypes that you immediately, when you start the game, understand what they are and what they're supposed to be, so that when you play them, you can jump in and start playing them and kind of get a feel for the gaming style. I don't know that they're not a one-to-one to the previous games or anything like that, but that's, we always want to go for that archetype kind of thing so people know what they're playing when they get into it. And hopefully there's a lot of depth there, but, that's a really good way of putting it, is looking at them as archetypes.
So they said in the panel this morning that fighting games are actually an inspiration for the monk. Can you rattle off any games in particular that you guys looked at, and how did those kind of fighting style mechanics get worked into this very different style of game?
Yeah, I think Street Fighter. Everybody around the office plays Street Fighter. In fact, the lead animator is an absolute monster at that game, so that's one of the big influences. But really, any of the really good fighting games that have the cool combo systems, and that's really the influence you're going to see in the monk. So it's not just a neat martial arts fantasy fulfillment, but it's also the way that he actually plays has that combo system. So, you can interrupt a combo in the middle and add in, the end of another combo. You can start it in the exploding palm, get that pumping, and then seven-sided strike somebody on the other side of the group of fallen, while the group on the other side explodes in a pile of gore. That adds a lot of depth and difference to the gameplay. So that's I think a good example of how we've been influenced by fighting games.
Cool. I don't know, Leonard, you mentioned people's expectations for the game. Obviously, you guys have had some experience with that, with the art style and any number of online petitions that have been launched. What's the one thing that you would want to say to somebody who is coming from the old Diablo games and is really stoked for this game? And then what's the one thing you tell somebody who has not played a Diablo game before and is coming to this one for the first time?
What I would say to somebody who's a Diablo fan is that we are very dedicated to taking what is core to Diablo, the action game, the lore, the feel, the mood, and really, bringing that into this game, as well as expanding on it, deepening it, really bringing the fantasy fulfillment of what the next generation Diablo game could be. To someone who hasn't played this before, I would simply have to say that this is going to be the best action RPG of all time.
You heard it here first. The company in general is taking the wraps off the new BattleNet at this BlizzCon. I know your game is who knows how many years away at this point, but do you guys at this point intend to support all the functionality of that stuff, and can you give any kind of specifics about how those will support Diablo 3 in particular?
We can't give any specifics. This is really StarCraft's BattleNet rollout, but yeah, we're going to do a lot of the same things that they're doing. We're definitely going to, we're big supporters of it. Some of our programmers are working on it with them as well to make sure that it set the stage for excellent Diablo 3 support for BattleNet in the future.
Okay. Can you talk any specifics about just, the Diablo 3 multiplayer in general? Is it still going to be 4 players at one time, or is the cap maybe going to go up? Is it still going to be kind of the same style of instance, jumping in and doing boss runs and that sort of thing? Is the kind of the flavor and the flow of the game pretty similar to the past games?
So the number, we'll keep looking at that. We're using 4 for the demo floor right now, and we do like the way that the 4 are combining. We're definitely going to do some more PvP stuff, but we're not showing much of it right now. We have more features that support co-op. We're trying to make people play together a little more, and if you play the demo, you notice it gets a little hard if you wander off by yourself and with a group of 3. We've got other features like the fact that loot drops for individuals, so if you get a whole bunch of yellows dropping on the ground, the first pass of them is all for you, and only if you pick them up, look at them, decide you don't want them, and drop them, then your friends can have them. So we're doing more to support co-op. The code's really good. It's really smooth already, and we keep it that way all the way through development. So the multiplayer is very fun, and we're going to keep it at the highest possible polish and make sure that it gets just as much attention as a single-player game.
The important part about the number of people who are going to be able to play is it's really not a technical limitation at this point. It's all about how many people it's optimally fun to play with. How many effects are going off, how much chaos is on the screen, and that's what we're really trying to find the sweet spot for. We have fantastic programmers, and it's obviously technology has come a long way since Diablo 2, so it's all about the gameplay at this point.
Very cool. So I'm sure you guys are all about gender equality, but I happen to notice in the demo on the floor there's no female version of the monk. Was that an intentional omission, or is it just the model's not ready yet, or where's that at?
She's just not ready yet.
Okay.
There'll be a female and male for every class.
Okay.
We're not going to play favorites on any of them.
Okay. So normally I would ask you when the game's coming out, but since you're Blizzard, you don't have to. You're not obligated to answer that question. So since you mentioned all the classes, any kind of hints at all you can give us about the 5th class? Any expectations people should have? Is it going to be an old favorite? Something new you guys have cooked up?
That would be a big no. Not if we want to keep our jobs, though.
We can just speak in generalities that it's gonna fit a different niche than the existing classes, and of course it'll be awesome.
Naturally. All right. Well, thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you, guys.